But let's go back to matters at hand and the crime that we saw just there in the streets of our cities and towns, because it is our cities and towns, though, isn't it? It's not just, you know, obvious daytime crime in supermarkets. We're seeing somebody there just doing a bit of shoplifting, or maybe even lifting stuff out of somebody's bag. You just have to be on your guard so much. I just came back from New York, and I said to my two sons who were with me, you know, don't get your phone out, you know, don't stand around with money in your hand, you know, keep your wits about you at all times, because, you know, you never know. London's like that now, isn't it?
And as I'm forever saying to young people, and I'm fighting a losing battle, I hasten to add, do not travel on public transport or walk around this great city with earphones in and your head buried in the phone, because you are cutting off two of the most important senses that will help you to not become a victim of crime. It's like trying to push water uphill, getting youngsters not to do that.
Oh, I know.
But
and also don't wear those extremely expensive headphones, the big ones that people walk around wearing, because somebody's just take them off your head.
Exactly. And I was talking to a young lady the other day who had been a victim of theft person, in other words, pickpocketing. She had her earphones in and her phone in her bag. And it was only, so a thief, unfortunately, takes the phone, is still within range, so she's still hearing things on her earphones. It was only when, of course, the earphones went quiet and she exited the tube station, she looks in her bag for her phone because she thinks there's something wrong with the tech, and, of course, her phone's not there. But, of course, when you're not focusing and concentrating and being aware of your surroundings, who's around you, what's around you, you're just primed for being a victim of crime.
Yeah, and it's right as well to say, isn't it, if you have more of a presence of police actually on the streets, there's less likely to be that kind of snatching of crime, you know, that kind of, you know, pickpocketing and you know, nicking people's bags and running off with them. If you see a police officer actually on the street who's not in his office trying to prosecute somebody for hate crime, that crime will go down, won't it?
Ah, but you see, because our police are all academics now, because they're getting degrees, and I'll give you an example of that from today, they all say, there was a study many years ago that proved that actually having boots on the ground, so to speak, is not a great preventer of crime.
Doesn't make any difference.
But, of course, that's nonsense. How can you measure it? You can't tell what crime a police officer has prevented because it's unmeasurable.
Exactly.
But they don't see it like that. They compare it to
you can find, as I know from talking to many scientists over the years through COVID, you can come up with data that proves anything you want it to prove.
Absolutely.
You know?
There is an undeniable fact that people like to see, law-abiding people, like to see a police officer on the ground.
Like having a police car on a motorway. People tend not to do 90 miles an hour past a police officer on the motorway. They'll stick to 70. If he's doing 70, they're not overtaking him.
Absolutely, and therefore they are preventing potentially accidents, law breaking, fatalities, and so on and so forth. But we see so few of them these days because, of course, they're so busy, the frontline police officers, going from one 999 call to another, because it's now, policing's like a breakdown service for your car. You know, you've got the AA and the RAC. If your car breaks down, you call them. Now, when society's called, you call the breakdown service, which is the police. And so many of them look at themselves as kind of social workers in uniform anyway. They don't like the rough and tumble of arresting people and thieves and all of that. And to go back to the point I mentioned earlier, today, Wiltshire Police published a 40-page magazine, and it's called Academia into Reality. Okay, because the whole police service appears to be getting obsessed about academia. And within it, they've got constables writing articles as if they're great learned professors in some way, shape or form. And you think, do you know what? Why aren't you out on the street nicking villains?
Nicking the villains.
Gathering evidence and locking them up, because that's what the public wants.
Exactly. Do you know, this morning I had a very strange experience, which was driving back from the airport with my two kids, and we came through central London, you know, around Constitution Hill, around Buckingham Palace, over Westminster Bridge, you know, past Downing Street. We saw, I think, Rishi Sunak's motorcade going around towards Downing Street, you know, two police cars, you know, outriders and all that. Suddenly there was two police outriders behind me, and I thought, that's unusual. And they sort of followed me through over Westminster Bridge, and then they disappeared off somewhere. And then next thing I got to the other side, and this is a bit local for people, other side of Waterloo, and then there was four police motorcycle outriders behind me. And I thought, now, are they giving me an escort because they've recognised me and they've recognised what a lovely car I've got? Or am I now seeing, because I don't think I've ever seen that many police in the same space of about 20 minutes.
Well, of course, it is the most policed part of the country because
Yeah.
you've got the Houses of Parliament, Downing Street, Buckingham Palace down the road.
Yeah, but why the motorcycle? And they all seem to be in groups of 2 or 4.
Well, I suspect they probably wanted an autograph, but were too shy to flag you down. But, you know, who knows?
But no, I just find it just strange. Just, you know, one thing you're used to now not seeing in the city is any police officers.
Yeah, and ditto for around the rest of the country, sadly. There is perhaps a realisation that neighbourhood policing is really important.
Yeah.
And that because it was sacrificed on the altar of austerity and counter-terrorism policing over the last 10 or 14 years, that it needs to be built back up.
Yes.
It's really important. But the whole thing about trust and confidence in the police, which is absolutely tanking, because the police are not doing what the public fundamentally want, that largely is born out of the fact that the police turn their back on the crimes that affect so many of us, the moderate majority. House burglary, car theft, bicycle theft. Bicycles could be worth £4,000 or £5,000 these days. Phone theft, shopkeepers with the shoplifting. They have my absolute sympathy. And the elephant in the room that nobody likes you to talk about, fraud. Because so many millions of people are victims of fraud and the police barely touch it. So consequently, because the public don't meet police officers coming to them to investigate those crimes, even if they're not going to solve them, there's not that interaction. And the respect has gone. And I think the current model of policing, if it carries on down the current direction of travel, policing as we know it will be completely stone dead within about 10 years.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing, but I think you're absolutely right. Peter, thanks for coming in. Peter Bleksley there with some bad news for anyone who likes to see the police actually doing more of what they're supposed to be doing.